Hello, welcome to Romantic Wednesdays with Poetry. I'm Alisa Agnes, your host, and I believe it's time to get real and spill some tea or coffee. So today I have the last episode about Black Forest Deep Forest for you, and today you will learn more about poems which are called The Return and Italian Things. So at first I will read you The Return, which is a really short poem, but it's actually the continuation in the same thought which appeared in my previous poems, but it's a really short poem. Some people call such short poems haiku, and you can call it like that as well, but I don't like such a word. I just like to say short poem and that's it, So, that's The Return. Waves of forest silence, they are constantly returning. Mermaids and ghosts live, live. And that's all. And well, now let me explain what those lines at first mean. So waves of forest silence, they are constantly returning. So here what I mean is the thing which in my mind is kind of typical for Renaissance, and it's simply a reference to that epoch. And it's once again the idea that it will still be a very important thing in our culture right now and in the nearest future, or in 100 years or something like that, because it was antique once, and later we have Renaissance because those ideas came back, and I feel like they will always be important for our culture, and I mean European kind of culture. So next lines are about mermaids and ghosts, and it's a reference to the Romantic era, because in Polish poem I use the word rusałki, what is a very typical kind of fantasy creature, which is very typical for my Slavic culture. And the ghosts are also a very typical romantic thing. And folklore is something that was very important for the Romantics, and I feel like those ideas still live today, and I think they will still be valid in the future. So it's just like antique and those Renaissance kind of ideas, because what painting is still the most popular in the whole world? Mona Lisa. And when it was painted? During the Renaissance era. You see. And so I feel exactly the same way about Romanticism and and Renaissance and this kind of things. I feel like, as I've told you in the previous episodes, such things will still come back in the future. And when I look at the culture and history, I feel like such things are constantly repeating and returning, and it's not always the same thing, but just the idea of the return. This is something that is I think a part of every cultural epoch. So that's all that I can tell you about the return. It's kind of short, and it's actually the same idea that already appeared in this cycle. But the last poem of this cycle, Black Forest, Deep Forest, is a very I think interesting one, because it's Italian things. I wrote this poem about Italian borrowings in Polish language. It was translated to English, and unfortunately all those Italian words which were borrowed to Polish language were kind of lost here, because it's a very typical kind of literary and language kind of thing, and sometimes it's really hard to convey those ideas to the different language, and that's why I decided to simply keep the story right here. But sometimes there are some words which maybe will make you feel like they come from Italian or Latin, because Latin is the basis of the Italian. And really, I studied Latin during the first year of my studies, and now when I learn Italian, sometimes I feel like I know a lot, and it's actually a really simple language to me, and maybe that's because of no Latin. But I also know French, and French is the language which comes from the same group of languages called Roman, just like French, Spanish, and Italian as well. So it's one family of languages, so sometimes they can seem kind of similar, and maybe that's also why it's actually easier to learn other languages when you already know one from the same group. But what is also true, French is the hardest of them all. And the simplest, I don't know. But I can tell you that I think I like Italian more than Spanish. I don't know, this language is so beautiful. But French is also really, really beautiful. And if I had to say which one, I'd say the first place goes to French, and the second one to the Italian. But okay, I need to finish such silly things and tell you more about Italian things. I will read you this poem right now, and later I will tell you more about this. So that's Italian things. 1. Historical Italian thing. Students and legates, rich from the 14th century in Italian-Polish contacts, were together around Babel and Rome. Bona brought to Poland in the 16th century. Soleri and Lick, Carrots and Presley have always had the crown plowed here. In 1518, Sfoscia Bona came to Kraków. 280 people of the Italian court, so exquisite she was. Italian culture, court influences, amore mio. Cauliflower, Resings Bona, divine trio. 2. Italian aristocratic thinking Gdańsk. In the hall, ladies gathered for a banquet. They arrived in beautiful carriages and by the shore. Galleys and gondolas moored. It will be a successful show. This nave passed the guardians by. Grenades and fortresses, what a mess. But the bachelor is quite handsome. Ladies were having such a conversation, eating cakes and pastries. Suddenly the butler brought tulips to one of them. The comedians came out from behind the curtain. The oboes in the hands, and they started to play. One of women started to mutter with joy. The second lady was listening to the sonata, and reverie appeared on her face. taking marzipan and oranges in hands. Foam sipping out of the wine, but it's just a little enough, drop by drop, and it's time to go to the garden, admire fountains, and listen to the speeches of wise men. The third lady got a lovely romantic card, grace bracelets, Cupid amulets. Maybe it will be a good match. Geniuses collect hats. It's time to go. Everyone already says. It's time for ladies to go back to the palaces. Well, so yeah, that's it. That's this poem, and the first part of this poem is a historical kind of thing, as the title says, because I simply tell the story of Italian and Polish contacts. It started in 14th century, but the main idea of Italian culture kinda appeared in Poland in 16th century, because an Italian princess was chosen to be our queen, and right with her huge court, not only culture came to Krakow, but also language, vegetables that weren't known here before, and these Italian boroughs are the example of what was happening here in Poland ever since then. Well, the second part of this poem is made of another group of borrowings, which were made of ship and boat names, and it made me feel like that's why this story that I created for the second part of this poem should take place in Gdańsk. So I decided to create such a little party in this poem, and it's used of so many words which I found, and it's mainly about food, about musical instruments, stuff, and such things. Oh, and also words which have a lot in common with love, and you can find here the history of the story of 3 women who met at the party. You can see what was happening out there, and in the end the party ends, and they all had to go back to their palaces. Well, this story could take place in 16th century, but maybe also in 19th century. I feel like we kind of fit it in more than one historical epoch. And well, if you'd like to check out what these Italian borrowings sounded like in the Polish version, I really recommend to check out my YouTube channel. Just search for Alisa Agnes and you will find this poem in the Polish version out there. Because this poem is just a English translation, and I just decided to keep the story so that sound unfortunately was lost, because such things like language and borrowings from one language to another are really hard to translate for the third language. But well, I really like this poem made of two parts, two stories. One is, a very historical one, and the second one is a fictional that I created. And as I've told you, it's made of borrowings, which I decided to divide kind of by in two groups, because one was more like the court in Kraków, and another one felt like the story that could take place in Gdańsk, in the port city, which is based by the Baltic Sea. So I feel like that's all that I can tell you about this poem today. So I guess that's all that I can tell you about this cycle as well. You already heard twice about the idea of Renaissance and those returning ideas, which are also about Romanticism. So I feel like it's time to tell you what to expect in the next episode or two. Well, I will start a totally new cycle, which is called Treacherous Romeo. It's the 9th cycle, and as you can probably already guess, it was inspired by Romeo and Juliet. But it's an alternative kind of story, which is more about the idea of betrayal. I wondered, what if Romeo didn't die with Juliet, but he decided to find another woman. So this whole cycle is actually all about this first thought when Juliet finds out that she's not the one for the Romeo. And also let me remind you that first few scenes of the Shakespeare's drama are about Romeo's love for another woman. I mean, we can see out there that he was crazy at first for somebody else, and later he found Juliet, and they both were really young, and that's why I wondered, what if the story had a totally different ending? Well, you will learn more in the next episode. So the first thing that appears in this cycle is some kind of letter to Juliet. It's a really short, actually a short story, and it's a kind of political kind of thing, and it's a little opener. So I will tell you more about this in the next episode, but there is also a poem about which I will tell you. It's called 7 Days, and it's a very important kind of poem to me, because I even had a playlist named like that, if I remember this well. Well, this cycle is kind of long, so we will discuss the subject for a while, like for 4 weeks. So yep, but the there are probably also more special bonus episodes coming in the nearest future. I don't tell you much right now, but you will see soon. So that's all today. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope to see you checking out this the next podcast episode. So until the next time, yep, bye.